pre-show right now. And let's see. Yep, it says we're live. Look at that. We're 1 minute ahead of time.
Wow.
Wow, look at that. Steve's here, so it's making things more efficient.
We are normally a little late, so it's all on your side.
Does anybody know
happens a lot.
YouTube's changed though?
YouTube's changed what?
Like, I don't know what's. I mean, maybe
They
it's
got
because I'm
podcasts
running.
now.
No, like so, the window is huge.
Oh no, it's a little button, the theater icon button.
No,
Oh.
I can't even. It's
Did
not
you
in
s-
theater mode. It's not in theater mode.
Are you seeing the one where now instead of comments at the bottom, it shows all the videos?
Yeah. What is up with
Yeah,
that?
I hate that layout.
Oh,
I don't know.
I haven't
It's
seen
brand
that
new.
yet.
Oh,
Huh.
maybe it's me
Terrible.
then. I thought it was like because I'm running Windows 11 on this laptop now, so I know.
Oh,
Because I have to see. I just, I talk so much smack about it all this time. I got to live it, and it's. I'm gonna admit, we're doing a video on this, but it is not. It is actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Windows
So,
11.
yeah, I really because
Yeah.
it was like when you do it for testing, you're just like, oh my god, this is so annoying. There's definitely still some annoying things about it, but I can live with it. I can live with it.
I
So-
feel like for me, a lot of the concerns were resolved by moving the start bar back to the bottom left.
Yeah, no, I
And
mean,
then I was okay.
yeah, no, I think that's what it. To me, that's really where they got off on the wrong foot. Like Windows 12, they got to go back to start button on the left. But to me,
They're trying to be Apple too much.
yeah,
yeah.
it was ridiculous to me that it was just that punch in the face to move it to the middle, and like you're basically crapping on billions of people and 20 years of legacy here.
Well, all the
to-
kids are growing up with Chrome OS and MacBooks these days, man. You gotta
those people.
skate where the puck's going.
There are no kids who graduate from high school and then like, I've left now high school where I had to use a Chromebook and want to like not have a MacBook or a PC. I love Chrome OS. I think it's awesome, but ain't no kids want to like go to college and have a Chromebook. I just don't think that's a reality. So I don't know. We should have somebody on from the Chrome team one of these days. Because like,
should we?
no, we don't have to. I just don't think. But yeah, hey, awesome.
We're here.
We are here. We have obviously special guest Steve Burke of Gamers Nexus. For some reason, my brain is
Steve Burke of Stephen Burke fame.
yeah, Steve Burke of Steve Burke. And it's newsworthy because we're gonna have Steve on to talk about his investigation into exploding X3D parts.
That's right.
This is gonna be cool. If you're like most people and you could only understand 15% of his video, this will be a good episode for you. It was an awesome video. Please, of course, go over and view that. So on Gamers Nexus, and I know you're already subscribed, but go over there, like and subscribe, and click that bell button.
Thanks. I just tweeted it out again too. So
Well, thank you, and we got all the friends of the show here: the Zivs, the Chucks, the Eskamonsters.
oh yeah, Zipzulandis.
yeah.
Posts on ours too.
Ziv's awesome. Oh, Steve. So I tweeted something at you that Ziv made for us. An image, an AI generated image with you and Gordon.
Oh,
I'm
no.
going to send it to you on a Discord right
So
now.
that was AI
Okay.
generated.
That was AI generated. Yeah. Let me.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh crap. Let me get this.
That means nobody owns it then.
I mean, I'll give rights to Ziv. He deserves it. So do you have Discord open?
Yeah.
Steve. Okay, let me send this image to you. We have to. The thing is, we have to recreate this at Computex.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I don't know how we're gonna do that.
there we go. I'm sending it now.
Oh
so-
man, Dan.
that's
Pretty good.
yeah, courtesy of Ziv. So
I like that.
Yeah.
bring we'll
we
have
could definitely make a thumbnail like that.
Yeah.
Don't I look like the security guard at Starbucks though?
Have you shown this? Did you show this to the stream?
no, I should bring this up on the stream, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I just feel like I know. You know what? The security guard. At Walgreens in San Francisco, sir. When you're shoplifting, please make sure you shoplift the bag too, because
Right.
I cannot do anything. I'm not allowed to because of our insurance purposes.
No, you
but
got to bring your reusable bag to
bring
shoplift.
you have to shoplift with the reusable bag in San Francisco. So
All right, the stream has seen it. Now we've brought it into existence. We'll
Right.
recreate that that photo at Computex.
I feel old,
yeah.
but I am old because I'm literally taped together right now. I have like a tape across my back to hold me in place.
Oh, your
Kind of like
so
the
your
Intel
zipper doesn't unzip.
CPUs.
Ooh, zing!
Oh no, that
All
was
right.
glue. Sorry.
Yeah.
A little bit higher quality adhesive.
All right. I think we are good to go, Gordon. If you want to hit the intro and whenever you're ready.
In this episode of Full Nerd, CPUs exploding and will Intel ditch its CPU brand?
Intel.
Welcome to episode 255 of the Full Nerd. I'm your host, Gordon Mong, with co-host Brad Charkis.
Hello, Internet.
And special guest Steve Burke of Gamers Nexus is here.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
And Adam Patrick Murray controlling the vertical and horizontal.
Yeah, Steve, it's great to have you here. We're twinners. We're literally
right.
wearing the same shirt for all you audio listeners. It's a special edition. You don't sell this anymore, right? It was special edition.
We do not. Yeah.
Really?
So, yeah.
So wait, I have a question because I ordered the 15th anniversary shirt. It said back ordered. So that means I get it. It's not so like special, right? It's eventually will still come out.
It will. Yeah. So for those shirts, since we're collecting the size distribution first, right? Like that's the problem with shirts is you have like maybe 8 SKUs or something. So
Right.
you have to figure out how many to make of each one. But yeah, no, you'll get that.
Oh, I see. That's clever.
Yeah.
That's clever. And by the way, I encourage you to go over to Gamers Nexus store. Make sure you buy merch because it helps funds the independent investigative stuff that Steve's done. And in fact, that's the reason why we got Steve on today. In fact, go over to Gamers Nexus channel. I know you know. I don't need to tell you this because you're already subscribed. And look at Steve's video and team on we exploded the AMD Ryzen 7 7800X 3D and melted the motherboard video.
Yeah. Was that? You think that title was literal enough? Because I got to the end of that.
Yeah.
I was just we were just about ready to publish, and I was so tired from working on it. I was like, I don't know what the title is. We exploded the AMD CPU and melted a motherboard.
And it could have just gone like ... and then just some like you hit the keyboard by accident and just
Well,
whatever.
that's when you go too far into clickbait territory. Is when you add the triple dots.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was too literal because it does get across what happened because you know, and I'll do the quick summary, but basically there was one recent explosion of an X3D damaged the motherboard. There were a few other Ryzen parts that are also had kind of melted and blew up. A few, but definitely a few. And Steve, I think we talked about it last week. Basically, bought the motherboard and CPU from Speed Rookie, so you can do analysis. You actually bought another one too of a Gigabyte board, and this was an Asus board. I want to have you on here because to me, I need to know, and you do say this in the video on your channel as well. But to me, what the hell's going on here? Because I'm like, well, I want to know like how did this happen? I don't.
And this seems to be like a multifaceted problem. It's not just the CPUs exploding. It's not just Expo.
Yeah.
It's not just the motherboard overprotection limits. It's kind of a lot of things.
It's definitely not just the Expo. We commented on that somewhere in the middle or last 3/4 of the video, but that I think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding maybe of Expo's involvement. So Expo is just timings and frequencies, and it's actually really cool. It's something that AMD kind of needs. It seems to work pretty well. VSOC, the SoC voltage, which is the one that we'll get into a little more later, but that's the one that was causing a lot of these problems. VSOC is not configured by Expo. It's not stored in the sticks. So when motherboards fetch the Expo profile, any voltages they're applying, maybe other than the memory voltage, are coming from the motherboard. So if a motherboard vendor sets a 1.4 volt SoC, which is a little too high, it's way too high, but then that's coming from the motherboard manufacturer, not from the sticks, which we mentioned because I was concerned that Expo would get a bad reputation where it is a possible trigger point to enable Expo, but it's not the cause of the failure. And we don't want AMD's executives or legal team to look at this thing and go like, why are we offering this if it's killing stuff?
Right.
So
Yeah, and because last week when we talked about it, I basically got AMD's statement. I got the one from ASUS, and as I understood it, because when we started talking about it, based on the information I got literally minutes before the show went on, I kind of understood. Like I sort of thought it was setting Expo, but the way I sort of understood it, let me ask you if this is correct or not. But each board vendor, they look at the Expo settings or XMP, basically what you want to run the memory at. And then they basically, in order to hit the Expo or XMP setting profiles, they have their own magic sauce about how much voltage they need to run across the CPU, right? Is that?
They should, but I think a lot of it is simpler than that, where so I worked with Wendell from Level 1 Techs on a lot of this. It was too much for just us to do. And he was like, I mean, Gordon, Wendell, he was just super excited to help out. And
I love Wendell.
Yeah, every time he got through with like something that would help us, he would ask me like, okay, what can I do to help you? Which was extremely helpful because we were slammed. So he, with his work and with our work, it doesn't appear as if the SoC voltage is necessarily as maybe intelligent per kit as it should be, as you're kind of suggesting, is the ideal usage.
Right.
I feel like the motherboard vendors apply the voltages in maybe a much sort of wider sweeping way, where it's like, okay, well, 1.35, everything will work. It's like the easy solution. So yeah, I don't know. How much of the basics of the issue do you want to explain? Because I kind of jumped straight into like Expo and SoC, but we haven't.
So what do you what's the root cause here? The SoC voltage is simply too high.
There's sort of the quickest version of the whole thing is there are two primary types of failure that are happening. So the easier one to explain is actually the overcurrent protection, OCP. So on that ASUS board, OCP was set way too high. So for people who don't know, overcurrent protection is a protection circuit that senses the current going into some part of a product, depends on what it is. And in the case of ASUS's, I don't know what their actual number is, but it didn't trip when we were at like 38 amps. And so you're into like 400 plus watt territory at that point. So it's set high enough where it is not actually doing the protection part of the overcurrent protection. So that's one issue where it's just not tripping. It's not protecting the CPU. If it worked, then in theory, maybe the CPU dies, but the motherboard shouldn't then catch on fire and incinerate itself.
Right.
The other issue is the SoC voltage, system on chip voltage, where you have a couple voltages in a CPU that are surfaced and really important. vCore is one of them. You tweak that for stability, for overclocking. SoC voltage you might change for general system-wide stability, especially once you start tuning memory or setting high memory frequencies, which is why it is often coupled with applying Expo. And on Intel, you kind of have this with XMP and other voltages. So yeah, so the SoC voltage, AMD's official statement is that it should not be above 1.3 volts now. And some of the motherboards were running at, say, like 1.4 volts. And theoretically, there's long-term degradation caused by blasting the SoC voltage too high. So you might not see an immediate failure. You might see a failure in a few months, which is probably why we're just seeing these pop up now. So, or at least most of them.
And so you were able to actually reproduce that too, because not only do you have, a couple of bad, burned up CPUs, one damaged motherboard, you were able to reproduce it as well to find that out.
That was really difficult though. So we tried a lot of really screwy stuff to repro the issue where early on we were testing with the same type of board. We pulled the VRM heatsink, which is actually completely unnecessary for this and would, if anything, protect it, which I can explain, but pulled the VRM heatsink so that we could get better access to probe the SoC VRM. And then we soldered stuff in later. But one of the earlier attempts, we actually went as high as setting, I think it was like a 1.5 or 1.55 VSOC, and we were not able to kill anything. We pulled the cooler off with that setting, and it still didn't die. Like it shut down, it therm tripped at 100 and something degrees Celsius, but it didn't die, which was crazy. Probably degraded pretty bad, but and
and real quick, what
yeah,
is this the actual system that was already blown up, or is this a separate system? People are asking like what the configuration was.
Yeah, this was our review sample and our review X70E Hero. We ended up killing a couple chips, and one of them, the one that finally worked, was in the sort of final hours of testing where I overnighted another CPU and board from Amazon, and we were able to get it to fail with the cooler actually still on top of it, and it didn't therm trip. It was in the upper 80s or lower 90s or something, so it's technically within spec, which is concerning.
Yeah.
It failed that way. So
It made for a striking intro to your video, though.
Yeah, no, it was, and Wendell's quote of I don't know what words you guys allow, but he had a quote that was pretty good that we had to censor. So, yeah.
I think it was rapidly disassembled itself, I think.
That was another one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good technical term. And then when you actually were able to repro it, that was you ran into that OCP issue where it wasn't.
Yeah. So we set the final test was I say it all in the video, but I think it was Expo on. I manually set an SoC voltage of 1.45, which is high. Like it shouldn't be that high, but that was only like within 50 millivolts of where some of the board vendors were anyway. So BioStar has a board that is over 1.4 volts. Asus was running at between 1.39 and 1.42 volts, depending on the load, and that was auto. Auto with Expo, so their applied settings. And so we set a 1.45, not that much higher than 1.42. And as the platform heated up, so whenever you start adding heat, you have leakage. And so as the CPU started climbing in temperature, there's leakage, and the SoC voltage actively probed climbed from our set 1.45 or so up to eventually it was like 1.5 something, climbing over the period of the test. And that's when it snapped and shut down, which I think that shutdown was OCP kicking in. The problem is when we then turned it on again after that, OCP didn't work, probably because the silicon had been damaged at this point. But that's the one part we can't determine right now. And it just shoved voltage current into the chip until it melted, incinerated itself.
Right. And now the other thing that came up in your video is was a little disturbing as well is relying on the self-reported voltages was simply not accurate, right? Your probe voltages, again, you're directly attaching, multimeters to the board itself. That was accurate, but the CPU and boards were not reporting the correct voltage.
Yeah, this is somewhat common. So on pretty much any board, you will have variation in the sort of the get or the actual voltage versus the set point voltage. So in BIOS, it might say 1.341 volts. And then if you go probe it at different points of the board, you'll get different readings. But if you get as close as possible to the socket, it's like a capacitor, MLCC cap on the back of the socket or something, you'll see that it's higher, normally higher. It depends on the LLC settings too. So it could be technically lower, I guess, but it's different than the set point. And the degree of difference is the part that gets concerning, where normally you might see maybe 10 millivolts or something like that. But once you start seeing 50 to 80 millivolts, 80 was the high side we saw, like 80 is very far away from the number it tells you when you're talking, like 80 millivolts. Yes, it is millivolts, but you're talking about on a scale of like 1 point something.
Yeah.
Right. So it's actually kind of a lot.
And I guess that comes down to the board design and at what point they're measuring the voltage then. So
comes from the board design, comes from the controller, and also LLC settings, load line calibration, stuff like that. And so, yeah, then and also software, whatever software you're using depends on where it's trying to read the SoC voltage from. So it's possible that your BIOS says a number that seems safe, like 1.30, but maybe if you were to measure it directly, it might be at 1.35 or something.
Huh. Okay. So the other questions I have, because we're in the media, we like the blame game. So who do you blame here? So whose fault is that's going to get all the blame?
I'm pretty upset with Asus, but they are not the only ones. So Asus just
over the OCP issue, right? That's
OCP was pretty bad. That's a pretty big oversight. Yeah. And also their entire handling of the issue, I thought, was not good. I mean, they started with denying RMAs, and then they're like, oops, this is a real problem. We shouldn't do that. But yeah, so Asus gets a lot of blame, in my opinion. AMD gets some. I think the only thing that helps AMD here is a lot of their blame is related to communication, not necessarily technical, at least not yet. So
communication with press community or with board vendors?
Board partners. So I think you start looking at the amount of board partners who are in violation of a safe SoC, and it's like either they all collaborated to make AMD look bad, or more realistically, it wasn't communicated properly, or it was communicated by AMD incorrectly what the safe settings are. And the end result is a bunch of the board vendors are running voltages that are for the long term not desirable.
And that kind of points to to me that points to communication by AMD to board vendors. That seems pretty common because you're right. Do they all just kind of conspire to do it incorrectly, or I guess it is possible that AMD said, hey, here's a line, and then the board vendors are like, oh well, we're going to go over that line because we have to be number one. So
right.
I mean, but
that's possible too, right? Like it's possible that the board vendors said, so we're working on some stuff. I can't fully detail right now,
Sure.
but there are good reasons for them to blast the SoC voltage if they're making certain claims about their product that require that voltage. So, the alternative is, well, we could back down on our claims and we could sell something with a lower number than one of our competitors.
Yeah.
But then the number on the box is lower, therefore bad.
Yeah.
So I think that's a problem you get into. But AMD probably still should have been providing some level of validation or QC, where it's not entirely it's not their fault, I guess, if the board vendor decides to set a stupid voltage, but it reflects poorly on their product, right? Like all the posts were about
Definitely.
the CPU. Yeah. So I think in their own best interest, they should probably do a little more. I mean, what we did is not difficult to check the voltage coming out, so they should at least do that.
Well, as the stupid guy in the room, the question I have, which we've seen a lot before too. I mean, even in the chat today, like how worried should somebody be? Like I've seen plenty of people be like, "Oh man, I'm running this right now. I don't want to turn it on or Expo or anything like that." Also, there's some people who are like, "Oh, you know what? I was going to buy one. Now I'm not going to buy one." Like how worried do you think people should be, Steve?
I think if you are certainly, I'll start with a few different categories of user, I guess. I think if you're a more skilled user who maybe has some OC experience, you're not scared of manually tuning down voltages, or you have experience undervolting or something, and finding that stability point. Because like when you're undervolting, the only thing you really have to worry about is is it stable?
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have to worry about killing it. It's just it might not perform well or might not be stable. So if you have experience with those things, unless there is some additional physical failure at a CPU level that we discover with the failure analysis lab we're working with currently, I think you're fine. If you go in there, you tune the SoC voltage, you try to bring it down as low as you can, maybe throw vCore in there while you're at it. And now not only is it going to run cooler, more efficient, so it's probably worth the time, but also you're in safer territory and it's something you've completely controlled, so you don't have to worry about a vendor doing something screwy. So if you bring it down to say 1.25, the likelihood for most boards of it being 50 millivolts out of whack and hitting over 1.3 is pretty low. So I wouldn't worry at that point. For other users, I would absolutely not trust that this issue is resolved just from the latest BIOS. So definitely flash new BIOS. Some of them are extremely unstable, so that kind of sucks. And check the SoC voltage and hardware info. Hopefully it's mostly accurate, plus or minus 50 to 80 millivolts. And if you're seeing numbers 1.3 and below, then you're in okay territory. It just depends on how much is that deviation if you're to measure directly. And I think if you add in a buffer of let's take the worst case scenario, say 80 millivolts, if you're seeing a number that's like 1.24 or so, then you're probably fine. Chances are you're in good shape. So I don't think people need to like panic and freak out over it. I think it does take it takes distrust of what the motherboard vendors are doing. And to load hardware info, it's free, really good utility, and check the SoC voltage.
But it's clear the motherboard vendors are trying to correct this with BIOS updates, but it's a little disturbing that like, hey, here's a new BIOS. Oh, no, actually, no. And it really makes me think like, what the hell's going on here? Because, I mean, I understand that, when there's an issue, you're kind of caught flat-footed, but this seems like really they didn't really have a fix here. It's just not a good look, even though the risk factors seem, fairly small, but still it just looks terrible, right? I mean,
yeah, well, I mean, like, Asus, whoever is making the decisions to push all these BIOSes, that person or that team, that group of people is not a group of people I would want to be in an emergency with because they are panicking. Like it's new BIOS. It was daily for a little bit and they were pulling them. They were adding new ones. They're getting the name of the CPUs wrong. They had a 6-dimensional CPU at one point, which I guess is not only vertically stacked cache, but cache that transcends like time, space, and spirituality or something. And they were also retconning the CPU support list for their BIOSes. And all of these things to me scream like, stay away from these updates until they've had some time. Because when they panic like that, the chance of introducing a new, more serious issue, I think, is concerningly high. And, it's one of those where they start making enough of the same type of mistake and you should wait for them to have a chance to let other users find the problems.
So, yeah, I just don't understand why, because we're not talking $120 motherboards, so we're talking $700, right. $800 motherboards that are having issues. It doesn't build faith. Although I do want to ask about the other thing that is, again, that kind of is going to make people uneasy is clearly the original Speed Rookie board. That person did have Expo enabled. He or she said no overclocking. But the second board you have, which is a Gigabyte board, board's fine, chip is fried. That person didn't enable Expo or do anything, apparently. That's what
correct.
Said, right?
As far as we're aware, yeah, they did not enable Expo. This brings up a good point that people should be aware of if they're building computers. They haven't built one yet. So that user was on BIOS F2, which is pretty old BIOS for Gigabyte. It's not their fault. The board shipped with that. They then went to flash to F5A. It completed the flash, which we know because we booted it. It was an F5A, which the F5A is now gone, by the way. They've pulled that BIOS, which I suspect is related. And in the process of flashing, it died. The CPU died. So, yeah, so I think a good takeaway here for someone who's watching all this and they're like, so what about me, right? Like, if you're going to build a new computer with X3D, even if the motherboard is new in box and you buy it 3 months from now, just check the BIOS and assume that it's maybe not a version that is, I guess, a correct one at this point.
Yeah. And
flash the BIOS, because we just bought a board. We're including this in our next story, but we bought a board brand new in box, shipped from Amazon, and it had a BIOS that was older than the reviewer BIOS. So it's from like August or September.
Wow.
Oh.
That was retail. So it's been maybe on the shelf for that long.
Dang.
And so, yeah, so point is like even if you buy a board in 6 months from now, judging by our experience, the BIOS may not be because they didn't recall these, so they're not reflashing them.
Right. And generally, I think probably a good rule is if it's a new platform, you're going to especially, when there's always going to be bugs in a totally new platform. AM5's new. You're going to want to flash. I know there's definitely some people who say, "Oh, I'm not going to mess with it because it's working," but I generally try to update the BIOS if I can.
Yeah.
Yep. A couple more follow-up questions. Ivan Ramazanov, sorry, butchering your name. NVIDIA restricts almost anything you can do with their chips. Should AMD do the same now?
No. I think restrictions, like NVIDIA's restrictions, are so far overboard that they become damaging to enthusiasts in general. It becomes very Apple-like, like, here's the product, you're happy now. Like it's really weird. So that's a big concern for me is what is AMD's executive or legal level reaction to this, where there's people in their labs we know who I think share the enthusiast concern, which is what happens to all of the cool levers and knobs we get. And that is probably not really up to them. It's probably comes from higher up the chain. So I think there's a possibility that we end up in this is why we can't have nice things situation where AMD's higher ups go, why are we even offering this if it's going to screw us over? But hopefully the end result is all they do is add some validation for their board partners and add a line to the checklist and check for the things that can kill the parts. And if they do that, then I think there's no reason to take other stuff away.
Yeah, and then it also feels like, because it does feel like there was a breakdown in communication somewhere. Working in many corporations where there's always the policy is to only have breakdowns in communication. It feels like the companies should go like, okay, we need to have a way to communicate. So one department needs somebody who's like, okay, we're going to make sure your job is to make sure everybody's communicated. Here's a line. Here's a red line. Please do not go over this red line. If you do, it's on you, your brand. But
or make it, if they want to have a thing where it can go over the red line, do the user prompt thing where it's like, hey, you're in territory now where we are considering this overvolting or whatever they want to call it. And so don't do this unless you want to avoid the warranty. And okay, they can never actually prove what you did and avoid the warranty realistically, but the point of it is more of to say like it's not supposed to be this high. So it's more about that warning where you're like, oh, okay, I didn't know that 1.4 was bad, I thought it was okay.
Yeah. Do you think that some of it is a little bit people are just sort of like, if they give me access to this, I can't hurt it kind of thing? Like frankly, because last week when it seemed like a lot of it was enabling Expo, it felt like, well, Expo we know is 99.999% and just like XMP safe, right? But it felt like maybe it should have been like, maybe it's 5% not safe, right? But I just wonder if people just take it for granted that you can't actually damage things. But clearly,
I think there's probably some of that. I think with you make a good point with Expo, where Expo and XMP fall in the same bucket, where it's, I was talking to someone else who's probably watching the show right now about this, but Expo is one of those things where it's so embedded at this point, like XMP is. It's like, for all intents and purposes, call it XMP.
Yeah.
Where if you post your brand new build on Build a PC on Reddit, and someone notices XMP isn't on or Expo isn't on, then like you get called an idiot, right? Like what are you doing? You spent $5,000 on a computer, you didn't even enable XMP. So I don't think you can really blame the users for assuming it's safe because it's functionally assumed that it's always on,
right?
Or should be the first thing you turn on, and you do leave a lot of performance on the table if you don't. So yeah, I think giving that particular lever to a user, the user is assuming this is safe because Expo is safe. It's the things they attach to it that are maybe not.
Right.
Yeah. So
That was my concern, what you were saying about we can't have nice things. That was one
Right.
of my concerns watching your video. I'm like, oh no, I hope they don't lock all this down. Because really the core issue is, like you were saying, the communication between the motherboard partners and AMD. Like if I'm overvolting my CPU or my GPU or whatever and blow it up, hey, I know what I'm doing. That's fine. Or it's not fine.
It's
but,
your fault.
expected.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anything that gets shipped to you out of the box as a feature and you just hit on, like that's where there should be much clearer lines of communication.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be like if you got into your automatic car and you push the button that says sport, and then the engine exploded. It's like, okay, well, I didn't think that was gonna. I thought there was some level of still automatic shift in, right? Like,
Right.
so I think Expo's kind of in that camp where it's assumed this is a button that you will push, and the product should still work.
Yeah,
So-
that's why it's also like both XMP and Expo are just it's damn near 100% safe, right? 'Cause
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
I think the fueling by everybody is there and it is there, but as you point out, it's all the other what's attached to getting it there that might be the issue by the board vendors. So
Right. And also, if we're going to start playing games with what is and isn't supported, so like Expo technically isn't supported by warranties, I guess, from what some of the users were telling us when they were trying to RMA stuff.
right.
We did that sort of test on Intel's warranty department a very long time ago with XMP, and no one seemed to care when we said, like, they would ask if we had XMP on, and if you say yes, it didn't seem like, I guess, depended on what support agent you got, how much they understood. But
Yeah,
But-
like in that video
yeah.
you did, you tried to get them to like to say no, but they just like whatever, I don't
right,
care.
send it back. Yeah.
Send it.
Yeah, and so I think AMD is in the same spot. But if board vendors like Asus is out there telling everyone hit F5 and run defaults, I think if we're going to start playing the game of don't use Expo as guidance, then I'm going to stop using Expo in my reviews, right? So it's because that's the message they're sending, and so
Right.
you get this malicious compliance where it's like, okay, you don't want Expo on, then we won't turn it on, and now none of your parts are competitive. Congratulations. So I don't think we're going to go that far because I think probably AMD and the board vendors are aware of that and know it would be bad for them.
Yeah, and it also feels to me like they can't. I would hope they wouldn't start locking things down because they understand the appeal of buying an $800 motherboard is getting in and turning knobs and having all these features. 80% of you don't understand because like I don't know what this
Right,
thing
yeah.
does, but you love having that access. So I can't see them backing down so hard off of that it kind of ruins it for enthusiasts. So.
I think that's a good point. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of business in selling high-end parts, and if they start clamping down all the features, then AMD's got a lot of partners who would be very upset. So, hopefully the overclocking stuff and all that is safe, and they just add some extra pop-ups that are like, hey, this is dangerous, and then you let the user decide.
Right.
Couple follow-up questions. Who's this? A friend of the show, New Tech, asked, Buildzoid at Actual Hardware Overclocking had very strange issues with a Gigabyte board resetting the VSOC values. Did you encounter the same thing? Also, have you seen the video?
I haven't seen that video from him, but I was talking to Buildzoid the other day. I'm assuming he saw that section of our video. I'm not sure, but the Gigabyte board we were working on, we showed it briefly in the video where if you type in auto or you load optimized defaults, it will not actually do those things.
Ooh.
So the last voltage you manually typed in remains, even if you type auto or reset. So if you typed in 1.4 by accident and you're like, oops, didn't mean to do that, and you load defaults, F10, save and reset, it will now say auto in BIOS, but if you probe it, it's at like the number that you set plus some.
That's bad.
Was really bad. Yeah, that's very bad.
Oh.
Yeah. So I have to ask you, has Asus or Gigabyte gotten back to you? Because both these seem like just kind of like QA BIOS bugs, but you would not expect in a very expensive motherboard.
Yeah, no, you definitely wouldn't. The only thing Asus said, we included it in our video. all they basically did was say AMD told us to do this, and they kind of mm, threw it to AMD.
Sort of
So,
that communication issue we're talking
yeah,
about that,
right.
that occurred. So, so one thing I also want to know about is, we went from it's crazy. We went from 7800X 3D being the best thing since sliced bread a month ago to now the standard internet overcorrection. Like the people that are saying, "Oh, I'm so glad I didn't buy one of these. These things are terrible." Like how the hell did we get here? And it's just it seems kind of crazy. What would you want to say to those people? Because I will say if AMD went from the absolute win they had from the original 7800X 3D launch to now everybody wants saying, "Oh my God, I definitely don't buy one of these. These are blowing up." And then because that's going to make AMD say like, "Yeah, okay, let's
Right.
lock these things down." What do you want to say to that crowd? Are they overreacting? I mean, should they just
I think I'll jump in on this chat message, something about like please reproduce the Asus reply or something. That's in our video, so it's out there if it's needed. But yeah, I think there's anytime stuff like this happens, 12 volt high power is a good reminder where you had a couple burn up, which is very bad. However, I think what I recall of the time between people starting to sort of cover it, like because Igor and Jay and those guys were before us, before people started covering it, but after the first post were on Reddit, I remember the sentiment kind of in the comments being like, these are all time bombs and they're all going to catch on fire.
Yes, classic.
And that's kind of where this was going to, which is why we pushed as hard as we could to get something up without skipping steps. And the internet direction with it on Reddit especially was very much like it's kind of like who's next. It's like everyone thinks they're going to be the next one posting a burned up CPU. I don't think we're actually there where it's like 100% of these CPUs in the field have had permanent bad degradation and they're all doomed to die at some point. We're not there. So I do think it was a standard kind of overcorrection. A lot of this is solvable through firmware, which is great. Like that's actually awesome news. As far as I understand it, there's some hardware fixes in the works as well, but I don't think most of those haven't been shared in detail with me, but I know they're happening. So for the firmware stuff, yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah, overcorrection because this can be resolved, but the motherboard vendors need to like slow down and do it properly and stop freaking out, and then it should be fine.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll point out a comment from BatTech. Just buy Intel, period. Problem solved. Thank you, said Pat Gelsinger this morning to this.
Intel,
yeah.
Intel, the ones who, I was thinking about that today, where there's been so much discussion about I think this was brought up on the WAN show or something, but there was a question about are more parts dying now than previously, and I think you're always just more aware of the present, but in this particular situation, CPUs are kind of unique. And then you think about it though, and it's like, well, but what was AMD doing for like a decade right before Ryzen? And the answer is basically nothing. They were on the same sort of architecture forever. Intel was refreshing the same architecture for like 8 years. So I guess it makes sense. They start moving to new platforms. Like they just moved to AM5, and that's right when you move is when the issues pop up. Just like right when Ryzen 1 launched, all the issues with memory popped up.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, there's the classic grass is always greener kind of sentiment. I think, so.
Right.
But
plus Intel was the ones not many years ago who themselves had all of their board vendors blasting vCore unnecessarily. Like on the Gigabyte Z, I think it was Z270, we did a piece on where they were running vCore so high that the CPU under a good cooler was at like 95 degrees Celsius. And then we cut it, I think we cut it from like 1.4 to 1.2 something, and temperature dropped by like 20 plus degrees, and it was still completely stable, still held all the clocks. So like this problem is not new. The board vendors did this to Intel also, and it was also largely Intel's communication problem. It's like a carbon copy.
Yeah. No, you know what's funny is I think back to Intel motherboards, like Intel actual well, I'm sure they weren't actual Intel factories. They were manufactured for them, but to Intel spec, Intel branded, Intel sold in the Intel box. And I used to try to use them. I mean, the classic, like going all the way back to like, 20 years ago, like, every single vendor was like, like ASUS is like, oh, well, PCIe is 100 megahertz. We're at 100.5. And then in Gigabyte, it'd be like, well, we're 100.6.
Right.
And then, and MSI is like, well, we're 100.7. Like it's pretty stable, because they want it to be
pretty stable.
And then you pull the Intel board out, it'd be like 99.8. It's like, what the hell? Like at the bottom of the list. And it kind of makes you wonder, like, it's like there's a reason sometimes why I almost kind of miss the Intel motherboard days, because you knew it was like made for stability, but it was always going to lose in every single contest. And then of course, then every single customer on the internet was like, I don't want an Intel board. Those things are slow as hell. It's like, the difference between 100.5 and 99.8 is like so. But I just know every board vendor, they always have to push it because it's always so focused on the being it first across the line. Nobody cares who lost the Super Bowl. I don't even know who lost the Super Bowl this year. I know who won.
I don't even know who played.
Well, I know the Chiefs won. Paul Alcorn was happy. He was drunk for days, I'm sure. But I just say, it's just like nobody cares about number two. And I think it's just, we feed into it. We all love being first, telling people what's the fastest. But, there's something to be said for like, we make the board vendors do this. I mean, I can't completely blame the board vendors for always doing that, because I know the product manager is like, hey, how come we got a bad review from this? Well, what do you want to do? We need to overclock PCIe? Yeah, go ahead, do it, right?
Right.
Okay. More voltage? But that's beyond the red line. I don't care. We got to sell more boards,
Fortunately, I don't think board reviews do that as much as they used to.
Yeah.
Like, there's not as many board reviews where you used to see these lists and it's like bar chart, higher, better. Here's the FPS for whatever board, which was always kind of a silly test, because the answer is it's the same unless they like really screwed something up or they super cheated with their settings. Right. So I think for the most part, those parts, the CPUs, one to the next, they're going to perform the same if the boards have the same settings. So fortunately, I think we've somewhat gotten away from that as a community, but it doesn't change the fact that PMs or marketing or whoever drives the decision says we want the largest number on the side of the box. They support DDR5 6000. Can we go to 6600 or whatever? So it's a cycle where consumers feed into it, but I do think the companies are ultimately responsible for their decisions.
Yeah, no, they definitely are.
Yeah, it's just the responsible thing to be like, well, we could put a bigger number, but then it might kill a part. Should we actually do that?
And it also gets back to what you were saying earlier. Like, to me, those motherboard companies are competing with the rules that AMD and Intel give them.
Right.
So it goes back up the chain to them too, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And that's where you guys probably have, Gordon especially would remember this, but where Intel over the years, whenever the board vendors tweak the settings, if you go ask Intel about it for a statement, they're like, well, we provide guidance.
Right.
It's outside of spec. Is it within guidance? And that's them trying to not go too far and limit the creativity of the board partners. But I think there's a step between where it's like you stop them from hurting the consumer,
Yeah.
But still allow the functionality.
No, it's true,
overcurrent protection, not overcurrent plus.
Right. Yeah.
I do wonder, because they and that's what I actually kind of like, is that zone, right? They give the board vendors the freedom to be, like you say, creative. And creative is like, we're gonna push it to the edge, and we're gonna go just a little bit more on that knob, because they just want to give you more. And that's one of the coolest things but I kind of wonder maybe that's just maybe modern, the processors are so stressed out that maybe you would just kind of hope they're staying within the safety margins. But I guess maybe it's getting so hard to, I don't know. It's an interesting talk with the board vendors and Intel, but maybe the old models don't work as much anymore. But, that's one thing that we have to hope that stays in our community is the ability to have that freedom to have fun. Because you don't want to have a stupid car that doesn't let you have fun, like where everything is just,
Yeah, like there's a place for those, right? And then there's a place for something that's tunable too. So,
right.
Yeah, if you want a system that's like fully locked down and definitely not gonna self-destruct, then I guess you buy some Dell Dimension or HP, whatever Pavilion or something.
Right.
So, yeah.
99.999%
The lawyers are in charge
uptime.
The lawyers are in charge.
Got a couple good questions on this topic. I know we're running short on time for you, Steve, but a couple topic related and then a couple untopic related. Gino had a good question. Any guidance from people who ran their chips at unsafe voltage for a week or two before this broke, but didn't experience anything catastrophic? Did they experience degradation? Should they pursue RMAs?
For a week or two, degradation, I think is, so to answer the question of has my chip degraded, the only actual way to know the answer to that is if you have really clean A/B testing, like as in you built the system, you ran some kind of testing with the assumption you will need to know if it's degraded later, and then you can test it again after the fact. And the things you would test for would be stuff like, can it still support the super high memory frequency I was running when I first built it? Maybe you were borderline stable on some memory tuning, and after some time running at high SoC voltages, it's degraded and now it's not stable anymore. You're getting blue screens. That might be why. It could also be a Windows update. So, and then likewise, frequency boosting, you could see if the frequency is decaying over time, but all these things require such clean data, and there's so many other variables, like maybe the cooler has started clogging with gunk because it's defective or whatever, that realistically it becomes hard to actually know if it's degraded. And in terms of a week or two, just to put people at ease, I would not worry about that. I don't think you have anything to worry about. If your board was running at like 1.5 volts SoC, which I don't think I've heard of a board doing that, then I would return the chip, I guess, and buy a new one. But I'm not aware of any boards running that high. The ones we're talking about, they're at like 1.4 volts or something, 1.4 and some change. And in those scenarios, a week or two, just like put it out of your mind, update your BIOS, and just move forward with your system. Like you don't need to be anxious about it. You've been running for months like that, and it was like 1.42, like on our Asus board. Personally, even though I would not be able to verify if my chip has degraded, I would probably seek a replacement, whatever I have to do to get it, just so, because for me, it's like the goal is I don't ever want to have to worry about this. And the way to fix it for me personally would be after 3-4 months, if I find out it's been running 1.42 volts the whole time, I've had it under a load 100% of the time, whatever, rendering or something, then I would probably seek a replacement just so I don't have to worry about it again. And I'm sure, like it's maybe a little overkill, but let's just have, that's what would make me feel better. But if you're talking weeks, I wouldn't worry about it.
And then the last on-topic question is from friend of the show, Ziv. It says, beyond the short-term BIOS updates, is there any general sweet spot voltage or range of VSoC that you'd recommend for longevity on AM5?
Sweet spot voltage for, beyond the BIOS updates?
Yeah.
The official AMD, I think, indication now is, well, they're saying no higher than 1.3. When I was talking to some people I can't name from AMD, it sounds like the general sort of target is 1.2 to 1.25 is the like optimal, you're not going to have any problems type of voltage.
So it'll be stable, but you also won't burn it up.
It'll be like stable asterisk. It definitely won't burn up. Yeah, absolutely will not burn up at 1.2, 1.25. If we are to believe them, then at 1.3 either. They're saying that's safe. I like 1.25 because it allows for 50 millivolts of error. Maybe they've already accounted for that error, with their 1.3 number. But if they haven't, 1.25 gets you to almost definitely under 1.3. So there may be the asterisk there may be some stability problems with higher spec memory kits. And I don't know. That's the whole point. That's why they're running the SoC voltage so high on some of these boards, is because the lazy way to make it work. So you might lose some stability, and you could downclock the frequency a little bit, or you could just run it higher SoC or tune it with VDDIO or something.
Another question for Steve from Kieran Ambati. I just want to read this because this person is probably going to be, a lot of hand wringing here. I have new components sitting unopened, the 7950X and Gigabyte X670. Is it safe to wait for stable BIOS, or do you suggest go ahead and building it? Please suggest.
I would just build it. I would definitely just build it, because you're still, like, to put it all back in perspective, we're talking about a handful of people who actually posted failures, and we're talking about it took my team over 100 hours and a week of time to intentionally produce a failure. So realistically, I would just build it. If something catastrophic does happen and you roll the one and you're the astronomical odds, then at least now this is so public that you'll be supported by the vendors. But yeah, I'd build it. You could run auto settings. You should update BIOS anyway, and then probably check back in a couple weeks or a month and update it again when they've finalized their fixes.
And if you're really concerned, like you were saying, then go in and check the voltage as well. So
yeah, exactly. Download hardware info.
Yeah. And again, I just want to stress, I know people are going to say I'm just being a AMD fanboy, but do not overreact to this. It feels like to me. It sucks. There's definitely some fumble here, but it feels like in the end, this is not even going to affect as many parts, hopefully, as 12 high power, which was.
Yeah, right. I think this is in that 12 volt high power cable territory where this one isn't user error, but I think it is. It was caught early enough that if you had your heart set on a 7800X3D, you did all this research, and you decided, okay, I want this one. Like I know what that feels like when you pick the product you want, and now your heart is set on it, right? You don't want to change it. And I think we're in a situation where that's fine. Just build with, like, don't go spend 80 hours doing research and changing your whole build around and dealing with RMAs. Like just be happy with it, build it, and like Brad was saying, check hardware info or something for SoC voltage.
Yeah.
Okay. A couple super chats, comments. People love having you on the show, Steve. Escamonster said awesome. Bruce Lucas said thanks, Steve.
Thanks.
Yeah. Denevra1G1 says where are the Steve Funko Pops? Steve's biggest fanboy gave us a $5 super chat, said, oh my god, best day ever. If I was wearing underwear, I'd totally be throwing them on stage. So there you go, Steve. And then a couple random questions from a friend of the show, Starscream, over on our Discord. More PSU testing videos when?
We need to fix our power supply tester. The Thermaltake one we reviewed last, when I forget which protection circuit it was now, but one of the protection circuits didn't work on the Thermaltake power supply. And when it didn't work, it killed not only the power supply, but the board with all the relays on it on our tester.
Wow.
Whoops.
Which is a thing that can happen with any power supply tester. It doesn't matter how high end it is. Like the power's got nowhere to go, so it goes through the last thing it can go through.
So you're saying buy more Gamers Nexus t-shirts to help fix the power supply.
Right. Yeah. So we can repair it.
Yeah. All right. Another fan test videos when? One more.
Yeah, that's a good one. So this, I mentioned, I've replied to a couple comments here and there about this. So we move really slowly with introducing new types of testing, and it's a mixture of things. It's a mixture of trying to get it perfect and not make any mistakes. And it's also a mixture of, we have things like this AMD X3D thing get thrown in and shift the entire schedule. So like I said originally, I don't have a hard timeline for it, but to give perspective, the power supply tester, we first introduced and showed that I think 2.5 or 3 years before we actually published a video using it. And it's going to be the same for this one too. We're approaching that, that 2 year area. So I don't know. I hope to get to the machine and actually work on it and learn everything properly sometime this year. It just depends on how many more catastrophic failures get thrown our way.
Yeah. If things would only stop catching on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the launches, are pretty crazy these days too, right? Because everything takes time out of
Right.
So
I feel like the times that I've seen it's kind of like the bat signal up in the sky. It's a GN signal. Oh my God, there's something on fire. Send Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
No, I mean, I really like that kind of content. So,
and I think everybody does appreciate it too, because, I think, again, your investigation in your team, it one gives deeper insight into something, because it's clearly just some dude or dudette on the internet you don't know. So you've actually got the hardware in your hand, you've tested it, you've reproduced it. And I think it actually serves and I just want to say this because it's worth saying again, that it serves the community, because if you had not reproduced it and you hadn't done the testing, we know how these things build up. Then then the ball keeps rolling down the hill, the snowball gets bigger, and then suddenly it's like, oh my God, I just can't. And sometimes the narrative gets out of control, and it's better to kind of get a handle on it earlier, I think.
yeah, I think it either gets out of control or depending on how clever the manufacturer's team is, I guess, or it just disappears.
Yeah.
Like, someone internally is going like, hey, do we have anything we can like leak or launch? Oh, you have a shroud? Okay, let's show the shroud. Let's get everyone talking about the shroud. So yeah, I think those are your kind of two options. But yeah, no, it's really fun content. I like doing this.
No, and it's good too, because I think it serves everybody to get actual facts instead of because a lot of reporting these days is just simply you're repeating and never getting to any depth sometimes. So that's
we all do that. Yeah, everyone does their news videos.
Yeah, to a certain point, but not to inflame it. Sometimes it does seem like there's just sometimes inflaming of it. So
right,
it's preferred to get to a deeper.
The outrage pony needs to ride, Gordon. Don't deny the outrage
pony. When you guys sent the shirts, the outrage pony apparel went first. Like I put it out for.
It's definitely the hottest seller on our store. That's for sure. Get your outrage pony shirt now.
It does feel like people are a little tired. I mean, people are not getting on the pony as much these days, but I know something will come along and people will get angry about it again. So
they're getting it's starting to chafe down there with the saddle. A couple more. Friend of the show, Travis Peacock. What's up, Travis? Ask Steve how happy he is now that almost every case manufacturer listened to him and have airflow options at every price point.
I mean, I don't know how many of them listened to us or figured it out or whatever, but I'm definitely happy that the case manufacturers have, at least if they ship something closed off now, they probably have an alternative that's not so closed off. So, but I mean, Mike Chin from Silent PC Review probably over a decade ago was pushing for similar stuff. So I think it just goes in cycles, right? Like how loud is the industry about it?
Yeah. Although his was always focusing on quiet. So
right.
It's funny because I think of like a lot of those early closed off cases. Yeah, they didn't have good airflow, but they were quiet. So the site's still up too. Silent PC Review. Mike Chen is like that's like old school goodness there on.
We worked with him recently on some stuff that I don't know when we'll talk about it, but the point he was making was he never liked dust filters in cases either, because a lot of the times you just end up with dust filter aligning with mesh and now there's no airflow at all.
Oh yeah, I actually one of my favorite cases from way back then was Cooler Master High Airflow, which was a high dust flow, because that thing was like we're not stopping anything from getting your case.
Yeah.
But I like the industrial look of it. So
yeah, half X.
I still have some of those Antec cases that he worked with him on too. I don't know if you remember those.
You should do you should open up the Gordon Mahon Museum of Shitty Hardware.
The bad thing is I've gotten rid of it, so much of it. I was just like, Wendell did that 64-bit AMD 64 video. He's like, you got any old hardware? It's like, oh. It's like, I don't think I do. I got rid of a lot of it. A lot of it's just kind of left at the office, when I left my
Right.
Mac's PC. So I do like the old hardware stuff because it is crazy.
Yeah.
And it is really true too, just how crappy hardware used to be. And it just seemed like it was cool back then. But now, like, the level of sophistication and engineering that goes into cases, coolers, and everything is
Yeah.
amazing. It's like 100 times better than everything
Yeah,
from back
and
then.
they're still advancing it, which you really wouldn't think that something like a tower cooler could get better because it's like it's not that complex at the heart of it. It's only a few parts, but then they actually do keep improving, which is awesome because that means we have interesting stuff to, keep building PCs with. It's not just, it's not like we stopped at the Hyper 212 and went, okay, this is it. We've
Yep,
done
done.
it. We've perfected
the
it.
pinnacle.
Yeah.
But it's also gotten so complicated too, because it is
Right.
it is almost like not looking at a 1972 Chevy. That's what a PC was like from like 20 years ago, right? Well, I mean, there's like 5 parts, carburetor. But I'm looking at the cars today. Like my car, like it's basically a rolling computer, which is cool, but like you can't do anything. And the amount of bugs in it in the software is just horrible. And like the fact that you have a BIOS that when you click default, it doesn't go to the actual default. It's like, what happened to like who did you get that day was like, oh man, we were out at the bar last night. What do you do? I'm pushing the BIOS out today. It's like, oh, I'm kind of hungover, but I guess it works.
Back in the day, you might have just had a jumper where, if it's not physically in the jumped position, then the only person at fault is the user at some point. So
it just says something like I just like things are so complicated now. I mean, software. I mean, maybe it is because when it was just hardware, it didn't have as many places you can screw up. Whereas now,
well,
it's
you know what,
mostly
Gordon,
software.
I think what I'd like to see is a PC World exclusive report on, and you can write this down if you want.
I'm taking notes.
The self-driving cars when they start repossessing themselves. I think you guys should buy one. You should default on the payments. And then Adam, you need to record Gordon getting self-driven by Tesla back to
He's
the
like,
station.
I can't get out.
The thing is to handcuff yourself to the wheel, like inside.
You're like, this is mine.
And then it rolls up or something. And you're like, what?
That's pretty good.
I just can't imagine. I know that they're pushing that. I just can't imagine that. So,
yeah, well, we'll see. 2 more quotes and real quick. Friend of the show, Ruru2. Steve, are you going to Computex?
Yes, definitely. Really excited for Computex, actually.
All right, we'll see you there.
Yeah.
And then the last one from Starscream over on the Discord. I'm going to add to it. Are you ever going to upgrade your home PC with the FX 8300, or is it just too meme worthy at this point? Steve, I'm going to put this live out here on the air. Come to the PC World offices. We'll build you a new PC. We'll build.
Oh, you guys
Steve
know how
a
to
new
do
PC.
that?
no.
Yeah, I will buy the parts. We'll build you a new PC.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know. I didn't know you could build your own.
Yeah.
I've just been using this thing the whole time.
Yeah, you can do it. We'll show you. Gordon here knows how to build a PC. He'll step you through the process.
Yeah, we'll do it old
He mostly
school.
just drinks and supervise.
Oh, true.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I'll make a better video.
No, but I'm not kidding. If you want to come out, we'll build a PC.
Definitely want to head out there. I think
Maybe,
I emailed Gordon not long
Skylake,
ago.
build you a Skylake or something. I think.
Yeah, that'd be a good upgrade.
I'm still on
Phenom
Skylake
2 might
too,
be an
so.
upgrade.
All right. Well, once again, if you're not subscribed to Gamers Nexus channel, please go over there, like and subscribe. And by the way, go visit the Gamers Nexus store. Really awesome hardware there. I got a Gamers Nexus toolkit. Just bought the 15th
Nice.
anniversary.
Oh yeah, we got to have you sign
T-shirt.
that. We bought one unsigned so that you could sign
Yeah,
it.
I'm bringing
I
to
gotta send you
Computex.
guys. I gotta send you guys the solder mats too.
But I'm going to cheap out if I bring it to Computex and have them sign it there. It's like, see, I don't have to pay for the. But yeah,
Don't give
please,
people ideas.
because go over there and buy the merch, because that helps support the investigations that they're doing over there. Good stuff for the community, for all of us. So I highly encourage that. I do also know Steve and his team basically have probably not slept last week, so we are going to let Steve peace out on us now. But hopefully we'll see you for some video at Computex
Yeah,
for some fun
definitely.
there. Looking forward to it. Best PC show on the planet, Computex Taipei. So
Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks for coming.
Steve.
Adios, dude.
We will see you later.
See ya.
man, it's always a good time having a Steve on. Glad to have him. Anything else you want to wrap up on this topic, or should we move to the next one?
I think we got it all there. It is, it is a little disconcerting that there was this level of breakdown communication between everybody. But, I do think, Steve has a good point, and this has happened over and over again because, just to summarize, people want high performance. They want all the knobs. They want the most. The vendors sell on that performance. They need the bigger thing on the box. And every vendor's pushing that really hard, and sometimes things break down and things are really, really complicated. So it does happen, but put things in perspective, you're probably going to be okay. I mean, honestly, it sounds like you are fine. Run stock and keep an eye on the BIOSes because it's going to get ironed out really quickly. So, and definitely, again, when people overreact to things, that's when things get a little broken by the vendors. Go like, you know what, we're not going to do that again because we got beat up over it. So if you don't want them to take away the nice things, even though yes, clearly it was on their end that this was the breakdown, please do not overreact to it. So, and that's for everybody. That's for all vendors. Overreacting and freaking out and losing your head over it is makes the vendors not want to do fun things. So just remember that sometimes when you're talking to your NBA level of trash on the internet about everybody. So,
and Gordon has definitely made this point, but do support independent journalism if you can. Yep. Go buy their shirts, go read their videos, leave the ads on, whitelist them in ad blocker, because this stuff does cost money and time, which is itself money. And if he hadn't put this out there, if that team hadn't been able to do this, now if you are one of those rare folks who do run into this issue, you have cover for it. It helps you out. It helps us all out. So if you like something, support it any way you can.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, maybe the next outrage pony is over Intel's new CPU naming scheme. What is this? I actually don't fully understand it. What's official here?
So I'm gonna point to this is a videocards.com story. It's a headline: Intel to say goodbye to its iconic Core i9, i7, i5, i3 branding. Following a leak featuring the upcoming Meteor Lake P processor, Intel came forward to confirm product name change. Bernard Fernandez, Director of Global Communications at Intel Corporation. Again, this is Video Cards. Please go there and read the content. Great stuff if you always want to be on the bleeding edge of information and leaks. Confirmed the rumors about Intel changing the product naming last week. An entry over at Ashes of the Singularity, which is what everybody kind of like got everybody in a tizzy over, showed Core Ultra 5 1003H as a new product. H, of course, is a laptop CPU, not a desktop CPU. And then it looks like, again, Intel, Bernard Fernandez, according to Twitter, he says, yes, we are making brand changes as we're at an inflection point in our client roadmap in preparation for the upcoming launch of our #Meteor Lake processors. We will provide more details regarding these exciting changes in the coming weeks! #Intel, Bernard Fernandez said on. So there's some thought that they're basically going to drop the I and add an Ultra somewhere. So like Core Ultra 9 or Core 9 Ultra. I don't know.
When was the last time, or when did they start doing the I? I'm trying to think.
2008. It was like the Core 2 Duo era.
And then they added the I because it was just the cool thing, like iPhone.
Well, I think it was Intel because it's, Intel has had lowercase I sometimes.
Wait, so Intel Core Intel 9.
Well, so originally it was, remember we went from Pentium and just a clock speed to Pentium D, which was like D is like, that's like, it's better than an F, right? that's like, it doesn't really imply the D, I think you think. It was like, I don't think that really, I mean, you couldn't really make Pentium 4 any better anyway. Core, then you had Core Duo, which was the original, core-based parts for laptops, and then that then morphed into Core 2 Duo, Core 2 Quad. Then they got all of us down there. I remember going down to Intel. They got into one of the meeting rooms. There were a bunch of everybody. Charlie was there. etc. And they ran the new branding past us. It was like, hey, we're gonna lose the Core 2 stuff. We're gonna call it Core i, 3, Core i5, Core i7. At that time, there was no Core i9. Obviously, that came along later. And anytime you do new branding, even the original Core was when they moved from Pentium to Core was like, what? That seems really stupid. Because at the time, they had not established that the Core branding was like as awesome as it was, because people don't remember Intel had been getting its ass handed to it by AMD at the time. Pentium 4 was just, getting clobbered. And when they came up with Core 2, people were like, this seems kind of stupid. You're like, what do you like? So because you at the time, clearly multi-core, right? Hey, dual cores. You're going to name your CPU the Core? Like, that's just like calling your like the new GeForce graphics. You're like, what? The reaction was negative. And I can tell you, anytime the media has a reaction to branding and the consumers, you can always tell that we're wrong, because over time, Core came out, it kicked ass, it basically put AMD in its box they vanished under the waters for many years again. Core did that, and then of course Core i7 came out, and as again was another big winner, and they'd moved to the i3, i5, i7, and the loose, because we are again, classic. If you think the media is something to rely on, I usually go the opposite direction of what we say. The idea was like, look, we want to be able to communicate easily, like an entry level SKU, a mid range SKU, and a high end SKU, and they sort of said, like, it's like a BMW. You got a BMW 3 Series. Okay, it might be a coupe. Maybe you're not rich. You got the 7 Series, 5 Series. It's kind of like that, and it took a while, but it ended up working. This, to me, honestly, I don't think is a big deal. I've already seen some people like, this is crazy to drop branding that you've built up for, 15 years. If they're going to go from Core i7 to Core Ultra 7, I think the average consumer who goes into Best Buy, Costco, as long as they see Core and they see 7, they see Intel, it'll work on them. So I don't honestly think it's a big deal.
I think the devil's going to be in the details, because we don't actually know what the branding change is going to be yet. So I don't want to put the cart too far ahead of the horse yet.
Right.
But Meteor Lake is a big change in how they make processors. Like, they're doing that UCIe, like Lego-like construction of chips now. So it's like a fundamental change. And who knows, maybe the standard i7, i5 stick around, but then they attach a badass ARC GPU block to one of these, and those are the Ultra ones.
Yeah. No, that's
in which case that would make sense.
Yeah. I was kind of like, it doesn't really roll off the tongue, Core Ultra 9.
Well,
Core 9 Ultra might work a little better.
I'm sick of all these companies naming their stuff Ultra, super epic. Like, it was funny at first, but now that everyone's doing it, it's like, it's a little
but also, don't they almost kind of have this delineation in the laptop parts? Because there's i3, i5, i7, i9, but there's H, U, and you know what I mean? So it's kind of like still almost segmented between power envelopes, but then also the different core counts.
Yeah, and they really also ran into that problem where they wanted to try to I'm with that, Brad. That makes so much sense, because remember when Tiger Lake and originally Ice Lake came out, they really wanted to, like, hey, we're giving you better graphics, and they really wanted to work that into the model number, like, because they had Core i7U for a long time, or Core i5U, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Tiger Lake came out, that was the first time I remember. Well, I don't remember what they had for Ice Lake, but it was like, oh, it's not actually Core i7U, whatever. It was actually a Core i7 UP3 or whatever. Like, it was like, we're like, what?
I forgot.
Oh, yeah, it denominates the better graphics core on the higher end, that you got. You got the
and
best
nobody
graphics.
but nerds is ever going to know that. But
Yeah.
just slap an Ultra or something on there.
Especially on laptop.
No, and it makes sense too, Brad, because that makes so much sense, because, maybe you buy a Core Ultra 9 in an H class. Well, would you get it with? You might get it in H class. So you basically get now your high-end ARC graphics, the Ultra. So you're now getting, it says in the name, you're getting Ultra graphics, which is going to be really nice, because you're going to get clearly, a decent amount of performance out of a graphics core from Intel. And then maybe as you get down to, hey, so maybe you have a an HX part, it won't be Ultra, which is, although that's going to be weird. So if Ultra denotes the graphics core, is a consumer going to go, oh, I want the Ultra, but this doesn't have the Ultra, but the HX is going to be more cores, higher clocks, maybe. Or maybe
I find it interesting that the first leak that we're seeing is the Core i5 part. That could be for many different reasons, but I think it'd be cool if they're designed to be like MX level replacements, and so they're more mainstream kind of chips. And if that winds up being, we're speculating wildly right now.
Yeah.
But if Core i5 comes out, Core i5 Ultra or Core Ultra 5 or whatever it's being called, and you can say, hey, I can play games at medium to low settings. I can do some content creation work. That's why it's called Ultra. But they're not even on the HX chips, because if you get an HX chip, you're pairing it with a
discrete
40 class card or whatever.
It does really, because I mean, it is worth probably the change, because Meteor Lake will be a huge change for Intel, right? Because this is their Lego stack parts that is, if it works out, could be very significant for the company. Although, so bring this back to the original. This is basically because someone leaked a performance score for in Ashes of the Singularity benchmark. It's hard to believe that is done accidentally, because
they changed it so you can't even accidentally do it anymore. You got to check the box on everything.
Is it?
Now. Last time I checked it was. I haven't tested Ashes of Singularity in a couple of years.
Yeah,
they had changed it back then.
I check. So when I do CPU reviews, so I'll have like, okay, this is a publicly reviewed chip. I'll like whatever. I'm not going to be careful, but like on the one that's not reviewed, fire up the benchmark, unplug Ethernet. That's why I like Ethernet over wireless, because unplug Ethernet, run the benchmark. I'm not going to screw something up. It just kind of, that's why it always, I really don't know who leaked this, but you always wonder, like, did they do this as a trial balloon just because they want to get people talking about it and seeing how people.
I find it interesting that they responded to this out loud.
Yeah, right.
That was the shocking part to me, to see Bernard tweet about it. Like, when you see stuff like this, they normally don't acknowledge it whatsoever.
Right. And the fact that he said coming weeks, like Computex is in a few weeks. So I would imagine that's a good place to show off new branding. We don't know if we'll see any performance, but I think
2023 is going so fast. Computex is in a few weeks.
Yeah, right. Well, real quick from a high level, I mean, recently they got rid of the Pentium and the Celeron naming.
That was
now here's another naming shakeup. So many naming shakeups on the CPU side. Yeah,
and the Pentium, of course, is tough because that goes all the way back to the original Pentium part. So that I know that was controversial at Intel. There's still some people that are wedded to that. So who knows if they ever bring it back again? But this, I can see doing this. I'm not sure if this is the actual final. Would it really be? Who knows? Because it looks.
I mean, who knows what it is? But I mean, no matter what, they said they are changing it.
Yeah, they are.
We don't know what it is yet. But I mean, that's why go through all this effort to shake up the naming for all their different CPU?
If it's not related to graphics or some other block like that, because again, they're doing the Lego-like thing, could be, who knows what it could signify. But if it's just like, to me these days, Core i3, i5, i7, i9 has kind of outlived its usefulness, because if you look at Core i5 chips, you can find 6-core chips in there. You can find 8-core chips in there. You can find all kinds of wildly different, like i5 used to know 4 cores, no hyperthreading. You want hyperthreading, get an i7. These days, it's like kind of a crapshoot. So I'm all for them kind of rethinking this. Like on the Ryzen side, it's very straightforward what you get at these different tiers for the most part. On Intel, it's just been wild. So I'm up behind the idea of them rethinking how to communicate this stuff.
Yeah, and then also it brings me back to AMD's renaming of its mobile parts, right? Because they, the reaction was obviously negative because it confused everybody.
Because you literally needed a decoder for it.
Oh, I know. It was like a need. It's like, I don't understand. And immediately you worked yourself into, would this CPU ever be made? It never, It confused us. But honestly, from a consumer point of view, it's like, okay, this is kind of consuming. This is definitely confusing, but also seeing it from their point of view, I think it was actually kind of a good move, maybe bad move, because I kind of felt like AMD was preparing us for the future where you're going to have these awesome brand new 7,000 parts. And then, because of the situation in the world, you're going to have 6,000 parts. You might even have 5,000 parts that are sprinkled in there that are still out there in inventory that are got to be sold to somebody. And I kind of wonder if Intel's also, there's some thought that there might be, not everything's going to be Meteor. Some things could be Raptor. So maybe some stuff is reuse of Raptor. So now, hey, you get a Core Ultra 7 or a Core 7 Ultra. That's the brand new stuff. Yeah,
I like
you get a Core not Ultra. I don't know what you call it. Core Extra. I don't know what's another sounds good, but not Ultra. Not as good as Ultra. What's Super? No, Super better than Ultra?
No, Ultra is definitely better than Super.
That's definitely Ultra.
Well, because remember, it was the Super Nintendo, and then it was going to be the Ultra 64. That's how I remember it. So
yeah, that's true.
Ultra was better than Super in my mind.
Yeah, so it could be Super. I mean, you don't know. It could be just something that communicates, sounds good, but it's not as good as Ultra, right? So then the consumer knows, okay, I'm not getting the brand new stuff, but it's pretty good because it says, Super sounds pretty good to me, right? So maybe this is paving the way for Intel also recognizing the world has slowed down and, vendors may want to reuse these parts in different models. And if they can sell them at a lower price, it can hopefully communicate to consumers that it's not as good. Hopefully that's, because part of the marketing of the numbers is to convince you that it's newer than what the old model number was, even though it's basically the same thing. But also communicate that it's not as good as the stuff that costs more, which is the Ultra, right? So it's a sleight of hand sometimes to make you not feel that bad, because you were like, wait a minute, why am I buying a Core i7 Raptor Lake for the model that was out last year when this Ultra thing is out, right? So
and I like that potential thought as well, because I think that's going to become the new reality now that nodes are getting so expensive to build on. Like you can't make everything 3 nanometer. You ain't putting that in a Chromebook chip anytime soon. But a Zen 2 core, Zen 3 core still is totally fine or a Core i3, since we're talking about Intel, would be totally fine in a Chromebook or whatever used to be called Pentium. And you still want to roll out new chips that have all the newer technologies, but might be based on that older, more cost-efficient node. And so you're going to have to give them a new model number, but then things get really complicated. So
right.
Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking too, Brad, is like, as they go forward, as Meteor comes out, as we're getting these Lego pieces where they snap in different modules from different companies, different IP from, maybe they have like, hey, by the way, this chip it's got basically the high-end ARC graphics, and we pushed on this AI chip from this other company. Or there could be these other modules that are on there. Like, they need a way to communicate that this is clearly a very different CPU, and the Core i7, i5, i3 doesn't really get that across. And then adding a U or an H. So, I mean, but it could be this weird thing where it's like Core Ultra 7 extra AI or something. I don't know, because it's definitely it's going to be really complicated, because if they can really get this modular design going here, it's going to be super complicated for consumers to understand, and hopefully this helps people understand what you're getting.
And also, I mean, one of the things that people get confused about too is the actual generational name, right? Like a lot of times we use like, 11th gen, 12th gen, 13th gen, 14th gen, but sometimes those gens have a mixture of, like 13th gen is a mixture of Raptor Lake and Alder Lake. There's rumors that there's going to be a mixture of Meteor Lake and Alder Lake in the 14th gen, whatever they call that. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's also trying to get around it too. Like, hey, you know what? This is Ultra, this denotes Meteor Lake, or this is Super, this denotes Raptor Lake. I don't know.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this leaked, the Ashes of Singularity database entry is Core Ultra 5 10003H. So typically the first 2 letters are the generation.
Yep.
And there's no 14 here. So what the hell is this, like an old Coffee Lake bar? I wouldn't imagine it is. So it does make you think that there's going to be
what if they're those just the E-cores? What if the E-cores aren't Skylake anymore? They're Coffee Lake.
Or maybe they're the whole idea of like this whole silly generational thing kind of goes away, because maybe you get these 3 nanometer parts now, and then next time it's 3 nanometer or whatever. It just feels like
It's getting complicated.
you can't just simply say, because clearly 13th gen is better than 12th gen because we know it's one more better, right? But the AI accelerator could be different, the ARC graphic could be different, maybe the different PCI. We don't know what's going to happen with Meteor Lake, so I will look forward to this, but I do know people will be angry, and then there will be many snarky stories from media saying, "Oh my God!" But I've gone through this so many times. I get it. I've gone through going all the way back to the original GeForce launch. Oh my God, the amount of I'm gonna use a curse word here at Disney. So we're not gonna give that Disney or McDonald's sponsorship. The amount of shit talk we did, like back in the office, we were like, "Oh my God, GeForce, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard." Like GeForce, all that kind of shit talking. Yeah. I'm like if you I can go back in time and yeah, you were wrong, and the amount of what NVIDIA has built GeForce branding into now. They're you can definitely throw it in your face. I mean,
it always feels striking, and then you just after time it just becomes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going to bring up another console thing, but Nintendo Wii. Everyone had a shit show with Wii.
Yeah,
and then it's whatever, the Wii.
Yeah, that's why I think people need to okay, whatever. It's going to be but the amount of snarky stories.
Yeah,
everybody's going to try to outdo themselves by being the most
end
snarky.
of Intel.
But in the end, believe me, when you introduce a new brand, you just stick with it for a while, and people won't even remember 5 years from now what the hell people were moaning about a few years ago. So.
Well, when this news first came up, I was like, man, you know what I would love if they change it so the core actually represents the core count now. So instead of i3, i5, i7, you would have core 4, core 6, core 18.
Yeah.
But now that we're talking more about all these different things plugging into it, I think that's a terrible idea, because I think they're going to want to try to make it so the CPU isn't necessarily the focus by itself, because these are such complex chips being pieced together.
Right. Because the AI, the graphics, the CPU cores,
Cache.
IO die, who knows, the cache. Yeah, maybe we're like, hey, we're going to have a core part made for gaming. You like cache? We give you cache, right? We don't know, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's as we go on and they add things to it. So this new branding might help them hopefully align things so it's easier to communicate. The good news is for us, you'll probably still need a decoder wheel to understand it. So
that's why we
we'll still have jobs.
Yeah, that's why we have Gordon here.
Yeah.
We just got our friendly Tech Potato in the chat. He said, "Oh shoot, I missed giving Steve awkward questions." Yes, you did. That would have been nice. But the better question is from friend of the show, Eternal Duo. Good to see you. Gave us €5. Thank you so much. Said, does the name even matter, or is it really the performance versus price the most important? And yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, I believe that's true, because especially around the 4070, right? Everyone was like, it should have been called a 4060 or whatever. I mean, whatever. You could you can call it a hot potato, this is the GeForce RTX hot potato. It doesn't matter the name. It just matters what's the performance it's giving you to a certain degree.
That's true, but I also think that marketing and branding definitely matters, because I know plenty of people are just like, I bought a 60 class, I bought a 960, I bought a 1060. This 2060 is getting a little expensive. They want how much for a 3060 kind of a deal? Like, a lot of people buy based off of these things.
Yeah.
So it does matter, and it matters for, companies like Intel and AMD to be able to try to convey to people what kind of thing you might be getting. So I agree. When it comes down to it, price of performance is the ultimate arbiter, but there's a reason people get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to marketing executives.
Right. Yeah. And I do think the original, because I really, 4070, was it 4080? What the hell was it called? 4080 12 gig?
Yeah.
I
4070 Ti.
That was terrible branding.
Which then 4070 Ti, I understand both sides of it. Ultimately, I sort of saw it as, for those who are dipped in it and are going to watch all the videos and read all the reviews, it didn't matter, meaningless. But the casual buyer, they probably would have assumed that their 4080 was going to give them their 80 class performance, and it wasn't going to in the relative world. And I could see that criticism was fair.
Well, that was different, because
fair.
that was like, hey, it says 4080 on the box. Which one are you going to get? oh, this 4080 is cheaper than this one. Oh, I'm just going to go with the cheaper one. Like that one's like a little misleading where I think it's more like people saying, oh, the 4070 should have been called the 4060. It's like, well, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, I get it, but also I feel like if you're at that level, like, yes, you're right. We look at it, we'll research it, we'll look deep into it. Somebody at a Micro Center or even a Best Buy or something looking at it, like, yes, they're married to, oh, okay, I always bought a 60 class, I always knew what to look for. But also at the end of the day, they probably were like, oh, you know what? I usually have $250 to spend on a GPU. Which one should I get?
Yep.
Oh, well, this one's called a 3050 instead of a 3060. Okay, you know, like,
Yep.
to a certain degree, still you're limited by amount of money or.
yeah. I mean, it also like also like the 4090 laptop GPU, 4090 laptop uppercase, right? You know,
yeah.
I understand why a lot of people were hot over that too, but you know, I also understand why they would do it because they want to, you know, frankly, there is no GPU that's going to touch a 4090 laptop. So, yeah, cynically, they want to be able to sell people they want to get on the coattails of the 4090 desktop, but.
And I mean, to a certain degree, yes, they want a little bit of confusion to, you know, try to get some of those people in. But at least on this Intel side, hopefully they're aiming for less confusion, maybe.
Yep.
Yeah, and you know, this is something that an OEM told me. Randy Copeland at Velocity Micro told me years and years ago, and it was a really good point. He was like, "Man, today's consumers, they are like everybody, even the average person. They're hyper researchers. Everybody researches everything.
Oh yeah,
because we all got these stupid things. So it's not hard to like look up and look at a video or look at a review and see this bar and this bar." And see how much.
Yep.
Nobody's walking in and, you know, nothing's hidden anymore. So everybody knows exactly what it is. So,
I mean, or you have the other thing where they'll walk in, look, oh, what do they have in stock? Oh, I can get a better price on Amazon. Buy, go home.
Right. But I just kind of think like sometimes I think the outrage is not really valid because ain't nobody really was going to be fooled by it. It's very hard to fool people by the marketing names anymore, I think. You know?
I disagree.
Yeah.
The one that always sticks out to me is the 1063 gigabyte versus 6 gigabyte. It was marketed as 3 versus 6, but it was a totally different GPU. That was worse.
Yeah, no, and that was that was a very cynical thing.
Well, but that was also like that was also like the 4080 thing, you know, where it's like, oh,
1,000%.
Yeah.
But I think Intel hopefully is trying to make things more clear.
Let's hope so. Or, you know, God, who the hell? I mean, I'm trying to remember through COVID and through 25 years of memories. I swear to God, and I need to ask Charlie this because he was at that meeting. I swear to God, because we were in this room like, oh, what the F is this i3, i7, i5 thing? And I swear to God, an Intel executive was like, well, we think it's a good thing because if there's confusion, the consumer will talk to somebody who knows. They're going to talk to the person in the blue shirt. They'll go to read. That was like literally what, like, really? Okay, that's an interesting approach. I guess, you know, but I swear to God, that's what somebody said. And it was like.
That sounds like somebody being like, oh, don't worry, Gordon. We're going to keep you around as a job because we're going to make it so confusing. They're going to need to watch your videos or read your articles.
No, but again, you know what? The lesson of marketing is tell the media, tell the angry people on Reddit and Twitter to go do this to themselves because we're going to stick with it for the next 5 years and you won't even remember. Like, because no matter what, GeForce, Core, Ryzen, everything, you don't even remember what you were angry about because that's how branding works. That's why that commercial for like, where you give your car to some company and then for kids, supposedly, I don't even know if they got kids that they help, but if you keep singing that jingle, it works, right? And if you keep saying Core i, GeForce, Ryzen, Radeon, it works. And that's ultimately what matters. So I think whenever they roll it out and you see the hot takes to the reaction to the branding, it won't matter.
I mean,
will not matter.
Honestly, I remember around the time I started and we started this podcast, the Ryzen naming got revealed, and I remember us being like, Risen. Oh, I thought I was like, wait, are you sure it's not pronounced Risen? Like, you know.
Yeah, a lot of people because the Zen name was like, oh, that's badass. You should have just called it Zen, right? But they probably couldn't get the trademark on it, so
Yeah, it'd be my guess.
yeah. But yeah, in the end, that's how branding works. It's like you just stick with it. It's like, are those cars going to kids? Or are you buying weapon systems for cartels? We don't know, but keep singing that song and like, oh, here it is. I just got this car last year. I called up to give it to you. So that's how it works.
Kelt at Falcon Northwest said, see, Intel supporting tech journalism. There
That's
we
it.
go.
By confusing people. Core Ultra 9. What's it? I wonder if that's the desktop parts. I wonder what's going to happen. That
Or
to me is
maybe that's the
interesting.
laptop parts. You know, who knows?
I mean, there's a lot of thoughts. Some people of course, the internet rumor mill is definitely, back and forth. They're saying no desktop. Who knows? I put no stock in any of it. So
I don't put stock in anything until I see it happen.
Yeah.
Whatever their announcement winds up being, I'll look at it then.
And maybe we'll see something in Computex. Who knows? All right.
Spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning. We will be there. We will be there.
I look forward to it. I'm hoping this is. We have not been to
Be a good trip.
Computex since 2019.
Yeah.
Last time we were there, did we see Steve? No. Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Ooh, did we see Steve?
We got like some
No,
bets we got to settle.
Yeah, I'm sure we did.
We still got to settle that bet.
Yeah.
I think I won.
I've never been to Computex, and we were working out me going hopefully in 2020, and then still haven't been to Computex.
We'll
Next
get you
year,
there.
hopefully.
We'll get you there.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's switch over to some Q&A because we got a couple questions, and then we will wrap it up over here. If you have a question, get it in now at PC World in the chat. It's easier for me to see with my old man eyes. Or if you're watching or listening to this later, use the link to our friendly Discord in the description. There is a Full Nerd Questions segment that you can get some questions in there. This first one is a €5 super chat from Eternal Duoe. Why has no one looked at the OC 3070 versus an OC 4070? Seriously, a single 8-pin, does it limit stuff? Does it make the 3070 closer? And I'll say I did a video yesterday on Redfall, and where I put 8 different GPUs and just played a little section of it just to kind of roughly see performance. And I threw the 4070 in there, and I was like, oh wow, this is just one 8-pin PCI power cable. This is nice. But have you looked at this, Brad? Have you done any sort of testing with that stuff?
I have not done any follow-up testing with that yet. It's just been very busy.
Yeah.
Hopefully that is something, that kind of testing hopefully is something that some of the more enthusiast YouTube channels I hope to find pop up on there. Hopefully I have time to do it someday, but I tend to find smaller channels tend to do cooler stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I look for that. Maybe I will soon. I just was reminded that Computex is this month, so we'll have to see how this month goes.
It's definitely creeping up.
It's a good idea. Like, I get what you're asking for. I fully understand why you're asking for that, and it's a fun, interesting idea. So, if I went up with a weekend free, I might play with that.
Yeah. Friend of the show, Travis Peacock, gave us a question. But what are we excited about for Computex? And what are we even looking forward to? The CES 2024. Well, the CES is
New Intel branding.
Yeah, it's new Intel branding. Yeah, there we go. To bring it back, Gordon, what are you excited for?
I don't know if it's just part of my psych up for trade shows, because you really have to make yourself excited to sit on a plane for 14 hours and, do things to your body for several days. My predictions, because I don't know, I have zero idea, but it's like I just psych myself up because I have to mentally prepare myself.
Oh, you know what? I can confirm Gordon loves to psych himself up.
But I'm always.
What if we see this? What if
I'm always wrong. So that's the thing I know that you should always take this. Okay, here's my predictions. We're going to see, because I have no idea what anybody's doing. Intel going to show off Meteor Lake demos. We don't know when it's going to ship, but they are hot to trot. They want to get in this. They're going to show off Meteor Lake. I think it's going to be very impressive. Going to be, hey, maybe Apple would maybe want to dish that whole M series thing you're doing and come back. I don't know. We could see that happen with Meteor Lake. 2, AMD, I think they really basically shown most of the cards. I'm hoping Although we don't know, maybe Threadripper. So maybe Threadripper for desktop-y kind of performance. I mean, that's kind of like a big splashy thing they could do there. Maybe a new Radeon possibility. NVIDIA, I think 4060 low end, 4060. And so this is my high hope, overshooting everything to get psyched up. I think they're going to go for 4090 Ti Titan level graphics card. Go for broke.
Yeah.
Power supplies are there now, finally. They've clearly established that, hey, the $1,500 card is the best deal. Now we got the $2,000 card that is the best deal because this one is insane, right? So I would think, because Jensen's going to be giving the keynote, so I kind of think 4060. It's exciting because if the costs are reasonable,
It's not a showstopper.
It's not a showstopper. I think you break out the big guns. Jensen's going to come out and drop 4090 Ti Titan level graphics. Bam.
And funny enough, Linus Tech Tips just put up a video where they modded a 4090 to run at 1,000 watts.
Oh,
Yeah, so I haven't
Go
watched
watch
it,
that.
but
It's fun.
What was performance? Have you watched it?
The performance didn't increase as much as you would think. So that's probably why it wasn't the crazy high numbers they were talking about to begin with.
Oh, interesting.
But
Yeah.
it's still a really fun video. I love just why the heck not kind of videos.
Yeah.
I just think that because that card is so overbuilt.
Mhm.
And the vendors are like, man, you made us build these things. And, we ate like an extra 15% on BOM costs just on these stupid coolers for nothing. Like, we got to go to that next level, right? It just feels like there's got to be. And Computex would be a good place to drop it.
I agree 1,000% with you. If there is going to be a 4090 Ti, I think that's the place that it gets thrown out there. And it will probably be pitched as an AI accelerator. I wouldn't even be surprised if they put 48 gigs of memory on there or something like that. And can they with that board layout? Yeah, they can with that board layout. And just pitch it as AI so it keeps playing into the AI, the ultimate gaming, the ultimate AI at home card.
$2,500 then, not $2,000.
Yeah.
That's definitely not.
$2,500.
Yeah.
I mean, they
Well, do they call it a Titan? Do they bring back the Titan? Because the Titan makes it sound different than just the Ti. Ti just seems like a spec bump.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, 48 gigs. Call it a Titan. I like it. I'm glad we don't have paper on the line. There's my prediction.
I'll take paper on all three of those because I like taking those bets because I just think like, yeah, $2,500. And the thing is, the surprise thing is we think of like the times vendors have tried to test the limits of the market. 10 core Broadwell E, $1,723. That was obviously they hit that barrier, and then like Icarus, they came flaming back down to earth with Ryzen soon to follow. NVIDIA has not found the upper limit of consumer consumption for. I mean, maybe this is not the time to introduce a $2,500.
That's why I think they got to pitch it as AI. You can do your stable diffusion at home. You can run your local language models.
Yeah.
$2,500, the return of the Titan.
Yeah.
That's what I'm guessing. I personally, I think we'll be seeing 60 class cards. Rumors are saying potentially from both sides around then. That would be exciting to see. It's my reaction to those will be dependent on their technical configuration and prices, obviously. So I'm glad. I hope to see the start of the mid-tier start to appear again finally, all these months later after this generation launches. We'll have to see how that goes. And honestly, I'm excited for display technology. Display technology has been on a tear the last couple of years. Each major trade show, there seems to have been recently something new and utterly amazing that comes out. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see something at Computex based off of that. In Taipei, AU Optronics just had a big display show showing off all kinds of crazy panel technologies. It'd be cool to see actual monitors using some of that, even if it's coming in 6 months or whatever.
Yeah. And actually another place that is like classically Computex show-offy for Intel is HEDT. Again, I'm pulling it out of my butt here, but maybe we'll see a Sapphire Rapids extreme, performance SKU show off, just demo. So, I mean, honestly, that could work if they do Meteor Lake on mobile and then they do Sapphire Rapids to push, the kind of insane HEDT. to compete, then that might be a good place for it. So Ian says 28 cores at 5 gigahertz. Wow.
All right. Well, okay. Question for me. What do you think? Anything from Arc? Do you think we'll see any Battle Mage teas, or do you think it'll just be maybe Meteor Lake
Too early.
kind
I
of
think.
teas?
I think it's mobile. I think it's too early.
I think it will depend on whether or not that Meteor Lake rebranding is heavily tied into Arc graphics chips.
Yeah, I think if Arc is there, they
Mobile.
hopefully learn their lesson and not show stuff too early for Battle Mage.
Yeah, that's why I think it's too early. I think they want to play it very safe.
But Meteor
and-
Lake, I could see Meteor Lake.
Yeah, into the mobile parts, but I just feels like they want to come out, have it nailed down,
Yeah.
and they probably also want to let AMD and Intel and Nvidia sort of settle down their product stacks, and then see where they can attack for pricing too. Once everything's out there. But it feels like it's a little early for us. The next gen of Arc.
Well, actually, when Tom was on the show, a couple months ago, he did kind of allude to some, what was it, DX10 improvements? Was kind of because they did DX9 big improvements. And,
DX11.
Oh, DX11, yeah. So DX11 improvements could be coming.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Maybe that's
but
when they
not
drop
new
out.
hardware. I think they want to make sure it's not going to launch the way it did originally.
Hopefully.
So
All right, over on the Discord, I got a question from Champ 8007. Why is a 2.7 slot GPU not just called 3 slot? It requires 3 slots in the system, and a PCI slot does not come in 0.1 slices.
I agree, but when it comes to size, smaller numbers are better. Just the opposite we talked about with Steve about bigger bars are better in motherboard charts. Talking about a big old graphics card, 2.5 sounds better than 3, even though it's functionally the same. I consider anything over 2 functionally a 3-slot graphics card, but it does make a difference because some of like the PCIe add-in cards for SSDs and stuff like that, like if something's like 2.2 slots, you might be able to fit it in there, but not 2.7. So I suppose there might be a technical reason, but to me, it's mostly marketing.
Actually, it kind of bugs the hell out of me because these 2.5, 2.7 cards, I don't like them because you basically are taking up only two slots, and the cards are so big and heavy, you're doing yourself no favor because if you actually use a 3-slot, 3 add-in slots, you're actually going to get a little better support because it's
Ability.
now longer.
Yeah.
But I kind of realize I think the reason why they're doing it is because most vertical mounts are 2. They're not giving you 3 for the vertical mounts. So if they had actually gone to, a full 3-slot, configuration, then a lot of cases just wouldn't work for vertical mounts, which kind of sucks because you're giving up that stability of that 3-slot.
All right. I got another prediction.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
RTX Ada Lovelace Titan will be the first 3-slot, or not firstly, the first 3-slot Founders Edition.
I'll say on the small form factor side of things, having that 0.7 versus a 0.8, sometimes in those small form factor cases is nice. So, yeah.
But there's still, it's still
the
only
same
using
kind of
2
vertical.
slots though, right? Same thing though.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I'm talking about the shroud. Like it's like, oh, hey, you know what? Some small form factors will fit a 2.7, but they won't fit a 2.8.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Gordon. Actually, because if you did use the 3 PCIe slots rather than 2, you would have a lot more stable base.
Yeah, and but it's one of those things where you make a card.
I was looking over at a graphics card. Sorry, I wasn't trying to look away from you.
No, but I think it's because you make a product and you're like, you want to maximize compatibility. They could include a different, adapter and you could swap it out, but that's a pain for consumers.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks because so now instead of, I imagine most people are, well, I don't know, it's hard to say, but in my limited view of the world, I think most people are doing conventional mounts in slot.
Yeah.
But because of that 10% are doing vertical mounts, and because of you SFF people, they basically are making the cards less stable, Adam.
Or they're just cheaping out on supplies. The 4080 I have, it's an MSI Ventus 3X OC, something like that. Has the bracket with 3. It actually takes up 3 slots.
Oh, nice.
The actual shroud is a little bit shorter, which is funny. but it actually does have the 3 slot.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah.
All right. Another question over here from Dr. KMRK, I guguess. Whatever happened to the news about the 40 series GPU power connector issues? Where'd that go?
The
12-volt high power.
Well, basically what happened was Steve, as always, poured a bucket of cold water on it, and you basically, we all learned going from a connector we've been using for 18 odd years to plug it in all the way, pull it out a little bit to make sure it's snug, and then plug it back in again. So basically, that's what happened.
I don't know if it's a placebo effect or not. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were done. But on the 4070, it's cable adapter there to go into the 16 slot, 12 slot, or whatever you want to call it, power connector. It seemed like it locked in a little bit more securely than it does on the other ones. So I think they're working towards fixing that. I'm not sure if I'm not saying that definitively. Like I said, it could be placebo effect, but to me, it seemed to lock and click better than the 4070 Ti, 4090, and 4080 did.
I guess it could be. I mean, clearly all the vendors are probably taking a little harder look at the plastics and the connectors that they use, and it's possible. But I also do think after the public freak out that everybody had, people are also like, okay, I better make sure the damn thing is plugged in all the way. There's still definitely some weaknesses to it, but But
you got to also I think it speaks to the fact that all of these catastrophic failures absolutely should be covered. And they should be something people are aware of,
right.
But they affect typically very small amounts of people. Like same with 4090, same with my Radeon driver bug that we talked about a month or two ago. Same with the exploding things. All these are catastrophic showstoppers and they should be covered, but there's a reason they got through testing because they're very rare. And I think the vast majority of people who buy graphics cards aren't following up on the news and watching YouTube videos and stuff all the way. So I don't think that awareness is necessarily the whole answer there, because I think a lot of people who are buying 4070s have no idea that this was an issue with 4090s. So,
yeah, no, that's true too. But it's also, again, talking about the news here is again, that was high profile. It's just simply not to freak out. And the problem is there's a problem. There's this massive ripple effect where everybody just simply repeats what happens. Then there's deeper research. Then we sort of get to the root of the problem. And by then, damage is done, where you go and you put a Twitter post of, hey, I just got my 7800X 3D, and you get 35 people say, oh, it's going to blow up. Oh, it's going to blow up. Oh, it's going to... Come on. It's just not. And that is the problem with it, I think, is people overreact, and then they want to NBA trash talk about it, and it's just not reality. Again, there were 50 reports of 12 high power. There's less than a handful that we know of, the X3D parts that we know of. Could be more. It is a real problem. It should be talked about, but I think my problem is the people that just want to pull their hair out and start crying, and then they go out and they want to trash talk because, by the way, I bought the other team's stuff and I didn't want to go out and trash talk you. It's just not the good way to handle stuff.
Yeah, people should wait and see for testing. Like if it's big enough to make headlines, us or Steve or AMD or Intel or Nvidia, they're all looking at it. And once something is in the public like that, that's when things do definitely get fixed. Like the issue that I ran into, the reason I actually wrote about it, because stuff happens, is because I Googled it and people were having this issue for a couple of months. And so my putting the light on it is what made, some of the fixes start to happen.
Right.
But you don't know what the core issue is. So you see that, you go, oh, that sucks. But don't jump to overreact and pick up for it. Works.
And that's why it's important to talk about it. And I don't think anything I'm saying, I'm not encouraging, because frankly, if you don't talk about it, then it gets swept under the carpet. That's not good. Yep. But it just simply take it for what it is, put it in the correct perspective. So don't overreact, don't do the freak out. And then also please don't, and I know this is the hard thing, don't do the NBA trash talking, right? That's just, it's ridiculous to me, because it's just, these are companies, they make mistakes. It sucks they make the mistake. Everybody needs to ride their ass till they fix it. And then hopefully it's fixed to everybody's satisfaction, but then don't don't 6 months later when there's no problem then go in and like, oh, hope it doesn't blow up. I hope that doesn't catch on fire. You know, it just kind of, you know, that
I think
doesn't help.
to me, the greater takeaway from this recent rash of stories is you have to expect problems if you were on the bleeding edge. We always say that, like, I feel like some of us forget that sometime, but like this issue with my driver bugs, these are the first GPUs with the memory chiplets. The 4090s were the first chips to have this new power connector. AM5 is the first new platform. These things are getting insanely complicated these days with a lot of moving parts. So there's always been caution living on the bleeding edge. And I think people should definitely keep that in mind as these things only get more complex.
Yeah. And there's no
But I am glad,
product, right?
Yeah, there's no such thing. But I am glad for whatever reason to see that there are a lot fewer 40 series cards being burnt out these days.
Oh yeah. No, definitely right.
Yeah. A couple more and then we will get out of here. Friend of the show, Dr. Ian Cuttress had a question. Where to go? Oh, AMD quarterly financials tonight. Predictions.
Ooh, boy. Huh. Data center plus client it's gonna be tough for everybody. I think client's tough for everybody. That's client is the business term for PC stuff that consumers buy. It's been a tough quarter for everybody. Everybody went off the cliff. So that's my guess. And you know, honestly, go to Dr. Ian Cuttress's Twitter because he does these awesome, you know, summaries and charts of, you know, the results that are worth doing since he's more analyst now. That was like a Ben Kenobi Darth Vader thing. He's more analyst now than human. Yeah, Darth Vader more. Was he more machine? I don't know. Was it 2 arms and 2 legs? It seems like mostly still human.
Yeah.
Either way, I know he reacted to electricity.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Your father wanted you to have this when he was old enough. After I cut his legs off to get it to you. He didn't actually say, please give this to my son. It was like, that's what he said.
Here's one I forgot to ask a couple weeks ago from friend of the show, CR Poll, and I put it in here to remind myself. Maybe somebody will ask Gordon why he thinks Rambus got a bad rap, but didn't deserve it.
I think, well, because I was firmly on we are going to crap all over Rambus because of the, you know, lawyers and all that kind of like stuff. That's one part of it. I was firmly on that that bandwagon. We all crapped on Rambus. Where I think it ended up being unfair was, as far as technology goes, it probably was the right way to go because, you know, Rambus outperformed DDR, it outperformed dual channel DDR, and it took years for DDR to catch up to Rambus in performance. And I kind of think, as Enthusiast Press, why the hell do we care so much about Micron and, you know, and all these memory vendors and Samsung and all these memory vendors' bottom lines and whatever the battles are with JEDEC and all that sort of politics? Shouldn't the only thing that really mattered to enthusiasts and consumers is what gives you more speed? And in the end, Rambus, up until it fell totally off the rails, was actually what gave you more performance over DDR. And I look back at that as a lesson where we got caught up in the hating of like, oh, Rambus has this kind of monopoly on it. The prices are expensive and all that. And I agree the prices sucked. I'm not sure it was totally all because of all that stuff, but you know, you basically had very large companies fighting another large company, and then we sort of inserted ourselves to crap all over one of them because of what we saw there. And I don't know if that was the right thing to do, because if you're only concerned about speed and what enthusiasts want, it should have just been, damn, you know, quad channel Rambus would have been hella badass. And it would have been nice to see CPUs move on with quad channel or 8 channel Rambus in consumer trim that it took a long time for DDR to catch up on. And that's why I think I always take that lesson, because I was clearly in that bandwagon of we are going to crap all over, you know, Rambus, because that's what everybody did. But I mean, ultimately you're talking about multi-billion-dollar companies against another multi-billion-dollar company. And I'm not so sure that's where you should be as enthusiast consumer press. You should just be what's faster, what's cooler. So
Well said.
Here's some practical advice from Visible Spark. I'm looking to get a GPU off eBay and looking at 3080s roughly. What should I be looking at /for so I don't get burned when buying a GPU off eBay?
If you can find something showing that it is working, like if you say, hey, if they have like videos showing that it's running and stuff like that, that's good. I'm personally super hesitant about buying stuff off of eBay, so I'm kind of the wrong person to ask. But I know one of our contributors, Tiago Trevison, who runs the Classical Technology YouTube channel. Go check it out if you haven't yet. He does great stuff. He covers GPUs all the time. He's a huge used GPU supplier. Buyer, not supplier. That'd be a conflict of interest. But he did a good guide to us about what to look for in a used graphics card. I'd recommend going and looking that up. I don't have all that information straight off the top of my head. So these days, it gets weird with all the mining farm stuff that's been going on these days.
Okay, nice.
That's not nice. That's a terrible answer, and I'm sorry I can't do more. I'm sick and my mind is a little bit cloudy today. That's why I was quiet during this part.
Go read PC World is TLDR. Wow, the boss of PC World wants you to read PC World. News at 9.
Yeah. Also, I want to point out, I to me my input is like, I definitely would pay attention to price because
seller
when 3080, when you're looking at what 4070, they're definitely. Depending on the price, there could be some crossover. Mm-hmm. And then you're sort of like, if you're looking at next generation performance, NVIDIA is always going to be pushing their new cores, not the old cores. That's going to get the most service. I wouldn't mention that, but also.
Well, but hopefully he's looking at a 3080 for like $450.
Yeah.
Like
so
I think that's more.
These days, a 4070 is basically a 3080 with worse 4K performance, 2 gigs more memory, and DLSS 3. And those are going for $600, or sometimes you can find them on sale new. So if you're looking for a used 3080, I would probably be shopping around the $400 mark, $450 max.
Yeah, I'm seeing some up to 500, but yeah,
I wouldn't do that.
It's about.
Yeah, that's kind of like that crossover point where why are you buying a used product for $500 when for $100 bucks?
The used market,
some over 500 too. Yeah.
Tim over at Hardware Unboxed does a great monthly GPU pricing segment, like what's the state of the GPU market, the used GPU market, et cetera, et cetera. He made the point in, I think it was the last video, that the used market always lags behind more than you thought it would, because these are people selling cards that they're hoping to get maximum dollar for, even if the real economies with the 4070 being out has changed. So if you're looking to get a 3080 for roughly $500, $475, I would maybe wait another couple weeks, see if they come down further. Because me with the 4070 out these days, I personally would be in it for about $400.
And one other tidbit of information is if you're interested in buying used GPUs on eBay, I would definitely also check out videos from Brian over at Tech Yes City, and also and subscribe desktop. He, over the GPU drought, leaned in really, really heavily to what it's like buying used GPUs and also used mining GPUs. So I think he has a lot of good advice you can take to heart on how safe it is to buy a used mining GPU. You would hope that the mining farms are willing to dump things at better price. So definitely watch a lot of his videos on buying used, GPUs on eBay, especially mine ones, to see whether that advice can help in your search. So.
Cool.
We got there eventually after my terrible answer. Thanks, team.
No worries. Cool. We should wrap it up. So we can get out of here.
Okay. Check back next week for your fix of PC talk on the Full Nerd. For audio listeners, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or Stitcher. And if you're on one of those services, please leave a review. Every time you do, Steve at Gamers Nexus will intercept bad hardware heading for one of the hardware companies downfield. Intercepted, no flags thrown, and run it back to the end zone. Send questions and comments to thefullnerd@pcworld.com. I'm Gordon Ung with Brad Charkis.
Next episode is the 256-bit era. Yes, we read the pre-show comments.
Oh.
Yeah.
And thanks to Steve, Gamers Nexus, who was here earlier. Please go over there, like and subscribe, and buy some of that merch to support the awesome investigations they do. I'll say bye for Steve. Bye. Bye. And Adam Patrick Murray's going to hit the off switch.
Awesome shirts like this one. And we did get actually 2 new reviews on the podcast. One of them from VMAT1980 gave us 5 stars. Thank you so much. Said, been listening for years now. Hey, me too. Wow, got something in common. Love the podcast. Keep up the good work, you guys. FYI, Aliens is a better movie. Okay, fair enough.
Yes.
Fair enough.
5-star review.
And then we got another 5 stars from Lili Socho. Said it's one of the best podcasts that talks about tech and in general computer hardware in the industry at large. Has often great guests, and in general every episode offers good insights and topics at hand. Oh, this must be a different show he's talking about.
I know.
While professional, the crew is fun to hang out with and often like to poke at each other. Yes, it's true. It is. So thank you for those reviews. We're getting those reviews hot and heavy. I appreciate it. It's fun to read them, actually. So anyway, thanks everybody. I'm gonna go get some lunch, and I need to cue up the exit music. And here we go. Goodbye.